It's been years of silence when it comes to the progress that is being made on Naughty Dog's next game, a completely standalone multiplayer experience set in the Last of Us universe, and a sequel of sorts to the original Factions mode. But that silence is coming to an end. At Summer Games Fest 2022, Neil Druckmann got on stage and peeled the curtain back just a little on what this project will be. It has a story and characters and is set in San Francisco. But perhaps the most important bit of news was the promise that we would be hearing a lot more about this game in 2023. And the dogs have already put a down payment on that promise by dropping some interesting new details for their ambitious standalone multiplayer game in a recent blog post. Dr. Pooplove here, and today I want to break down that latest news and look ahead to even bigger reveals that we can expect this year when it comes to Factions 2.
And stick around till the end, because I will be talking about when I think these big reveals might take place, as well as when we might actually be able to get our hands on this game. But let's get right into it.
And where we should start is with the brand new concept art that Naughty Dog just released, which we can pick apart and analyze. And the first thing to notice here is the abandoned cruise ship that looks like it crashed ashore, and there are two survivors making their way to possibly extract some loot and get into some trouble. And if you look closely, you can see some of these skull signs. You can barely make it out, but these seem like they may be a mark of some new faction we've never seen before. And perhaps these two survivors are treading on hostile enemy territory. I'm certainly excited at the prospect of getting to discover new lore and stories for these warring groups that occupy the city. And it does seem like teamwork and cooperation are going to be a big part of this game, with potentially a good deal of PvE and PvP co-op missions. And when you look at both sets of concept art, it appears that teams are kind of pairing off and looking out for each other. Perhaps two-person teams will be a major thing, but the image also seems to evoke a grand scale as to the playable spaces, which lines up with the ambition that Naughty Dog continues to talk about. This also further points to hints that this might be an open world of some sort, and that lots of verticality is to be expected.
And from the inclusion of these pier buildings that you would see when walking along the San Francisco wharf,
in tandem with landmarks that we can see in the original concept art, it's a safe assumption that we will be able to do a lot of exploration in a post-apocalyptic San Francisco.
It's also worth noting that based on where the pier and cruise ship seem to be within the city, that it looks like you can likely make out this location from the first concept art that we received. I think that might actually be the cruise ship, or at least it's probably around this area. And this really gives a sense of the grand scale of this game and how big this map could be.
But the concept art itself is not all that we got from Naughty Dog's blog post. They also provided a little bit of extra information. They say that they'll have some fun surprises for us along the way, but that later this year they will begin to offer us some details on their ambitious Last of Us multiplayer game. With a team led by Vinith Agarwal, Joe Pedinati, and Anthony Newman, they say that the project is shaping up to be a fresh, new experience from our studio, but one rooted in Naughty Dog's passion for delivering incredible stories, characters, and gameplay. And so what's exciting here is that later this year, we can expect to get a lot more details on this game. And this leads me into what we can expect to look forward to with these upcoming reveals. And for one, we can look forward to getting full confirmation as to what this game actually is. We know at a minimum that this game is going to be more than the original Factions was, and that this game is in many ways going to be Naughty Dog's biggest game yet. But we don't know a lot of the specifics. The first concept art we saw and other clues potentially point to a battle royale coming to this game, especially with this spore cloud closing in on an open landscape. But if I'm being honest, this new concept art has me a little bit more convinced that we could be seeing a shared world shooter like The Division, working together with buddies to loot a potentially PvPvE environment. Others have also expressed the desire for an extraction type mode like Escape from Tarkov. Of course, multiple modes are possible here, as I'm sure we will get our OG supply raid somehow, and I would hope that we could expect the often asked for Infected Horde mode. My hope is the inclusion of Infected in this piece means yes. There are so many unknowns at this point, but there is a lot of potential for what this game could be, and because we have waited so long, and because they say that it's ambitious, our expectations continue to rise. But one thing we do know about this game is that it's gonna have a story. Now, this might be baffling to some OG multiplayer fans, as a story is not really why we play online, but I believe having a compelling story will be critical to this game's success. By having a story, Naughty Dog is not only playing to their strengths, but they are providing a reason for their large and passionate single-player fanbase to also become invested in this multiplayer, as it would be a way for providing more lore and stories within this world. And I would also argue that a good story would actually help multiplayer fans stay engaged longer, especially if your success in the game could impact the story. But this game has an opportunity to introduce us to characters and stories in the Last of Us universe that we never got to see in the mainline games. And with each new update, it will allow for more lore and world building that the fans of The Last of Us will not want to miss. In many ways, the story can be the glue that holds people to this game longer, and ultimately allows for a more healthy and vibrant player base, allowing this game to last a long time. But another aspect that I'm eagerly anticipating from the big reveal is to see how Naughty Dog has innovated, not only on the original factions, but also as a studio and with multiplayer gaming as a whole. This will be Naughty Dog's first fully standalone online multiplayer, and a major deviation from the string of single-player focused entries that are known to take players on a pre-established path. Although I absolutely love Naughty Dog games, it does feel like they have been iterating on the same type of formula since Uncharted: Drake's Fortune. This game, though, gives an opportunity for Naughty Dog to storytell in different and more dynamic ways, with updates and potentially player input and success helping guide the path. And it seems that Naughty Dog is taking some inspiration from innovations that have been made in Fortnite, and they also now have Bungie in the PlayStation family to tap into for guidance. But this is also Naughty Dog. They do everything with intention and love, and so I'm excited to see how they may continue to make further innovations in the multiplayer space, and how they will put their spin on various aspects of familiar multiplayer genres. Having Infected, of course, is already a major way to get a fresh take on some of these speculated modes. It's all an exciting prospect, considering the pure talent and passion that exists at Naughty Dog. All of these pieces can come together to make a dangerous cocktail of tremendous potential for this game that further pushes the boundaries of multiplayer gaming. And this leaves me with yet another aspect to look forward to, and that is some gosh darn recognition. The original factions, and even all of Naughty Dog's multiplayers for that matter, have been tremendously underrated. And as an OG factions fan, I have been a member of a tremendous community of devoted fans who honestly haven't gotten a whole lot of focus from Naughty Dog. But all of that is about to change. Naughty Dog is giving multiplayer their full attention this time, and from the outside looking in, it seems like they are doing what they should be in terms of trying to make this game ambitious and everything a Naughty Dog multiplayer fan could want. And it's of course encouraging to know that Sony seems to be giving a lot of support to this game by making these live service offerings a big part of their budget. But when do I think Naughty Dog will reveal more about this game? We know that Sony plans to have 3 live service games by the end of March 2023, and we only really know about MLB The Show. It might be a safe assumption to think that Factions is one of these remaining 2 games, given that it's one of the few live service games we actually know about. But of course, not only do timelines change, but there could be some unknown games that are planned instead.
And March honestly really just feels too early for the way they're talking about this game.
And we also have the HBO show, which further complicates the picture, as that will likely be used to cross-promote The Last of Us Part 1, especially the PC port coming in March. This is also seemingly confirmed in the blog post, where Naughty Dog states that over the course of the Last of Us show's season, they'll have an exciting inside look into the original Last of Us Part 1 and its adaptation to television with exclusive interviews and behind the scenes looks at the process. And so having factions in the mix during the show run, when it seems that they're clearly trying to have a marketing push for The Last of Us Part 1, may confuse that strategy. And so my guess is we won't hear anything substantial about the multiplayer until after the show ends in March. And this does seem to line up nicely with the blog post that not only states we will learn more later this year, but also indicates a lot of excitement around the 10th anniversary of The Last of Us in June. And that is where my money is on a big reveal. Now, dare I say, a beta would be a really nice cherry on top, but that is probably asking for too much. At a minimum, we already know that Naughty Dog's video editor has begun working on a trailer, so I think that is a safer bet.
But if Naughty Dog is waiting this long to actually give us some big details on this game, then doesn't that mean that we probably won't get our hands on it for multiple years? Well, I don't think this is necessarily the case. For one, I think multiplayer marketing is just a different beast. You want to kind of announce and release within a much tighter window to generate the hype needed to be successful in a very competitive genre. And this seems to also be part of Sony's strategy, where they don't really seem to want to announce too much about a game until it's very close to ready for release. Think about The Last of Us Part 1 remake and how they officially announced it only a mere months before the actual release window. And also, this seems to be echoed by Neil Druckmann in an interview with comicbook.com, where he talked about how Naughty Dog announcing games too early had hurt the studio in the past, and that by delaying announcements, they are able to play with the schedule more and can be more conscious about how they're approaching production. And so while I definitely don't think you could use that as confirmation that this game will definitely come out this year, I wouldn't leave it completely off the table. And at a minimum, I don't think we're going to be waiting multiple years. I kind of use this as a sign, as at the very least, 2024 is probably the latest we could get our hands on this game. And given the way that Neil Druckmann has worded this, I think really Naughty Dog is just leaving their options open so that wherever this game happens to be, they can be flexible.
Either way, there will be plenty of reasons to be excited and plenty of news to expect this year, and I'm happy that Naughty Dog is beginning to speak up more frequently about factions too, and I am excited to think that very soon we may at the very least have a better idea of when we can actually get our hands on this game. Of course, I do have some worries about the direction that Naughty Dog might be taking with this game, and I go over that in this video, which you should check out. But otherwise, so long, Pooper Troopers.